I'm 24F. My husband is 29 meters. I was forced to marry him 2 years ago by my parents. For context, we are in India. I said no because I felt I was too young, but they gave me no choice and threatened to kick me out. I didn't have a job and they scared me a lot, and many of my relatives started pressuring me and I broke under pressure. They married me to my husband because he was rich. I was expecting the worst, but he's nice. He keeps to himself most of the time. The first month was miserable. I felt alone in a strange home. Husband didn't talk to me much, and my mother-in-law is annoying as hell. I complained to my parents, but they said I'll adjust in a few months and I shouldn't worry because they're nice people. One day, my husband approached me and said he needed to talk. He said that he could see I wasn't happy with this marriage and he wasn't happy either because his parents forced him as well. He said that we should open the marriage. I agreed. We made some ground rules as well. Everything went fine after that. I never pursued a serious relationship, only casual stuff, and I've only been with 3 men. My husband had a girlfriend for 6 months, but they broke up. I don't know the reason. I know he goes to the bar with his friends to have one night stands and all of that. We have to share the same room so that my in-laws don't get suspicious, and I know whenever he comes back home late. I did get jealous sometimes and realized I was somewhat attracted to him, but when I decided to ask him if he wanted to try marriage counseling, he made another girlfriend, so I dropped the idea. Things have been like this since 2 years. Our in-laws never suspected anything. We would act normal at functions and festivals, so our relatives thought we were fine. My parents also pulled the eye. Now, I had a date planned with a guy I met on Tinder. We were going to meet in a mall. It was so stupid to meet in a mall, now that I think about it, but oh well. During our date, my husband's close cousin bumped into us. She was there with her 2 daughters for shopping. I quickly introduced my date as a colleague of mine, and I thought it worked because she just smiled and we chatted for a while before she left. My date knew I was in a secret open relationship, so he understood my situation. When I went back home, my MIL was furious and she started shouting at me and calling me names. The cousin told her mom, who in turn told my mother-in-law, and she must have twisted the tale because my MIL was calling me names and whatnot. I tried to make her understand that he was just a colleague, but she said I was lying and I was a witch and some other names I don't want to type out. She and her husband forced me to pack my bags and leave my husband's house. They must have already told my parents, and they also gave me a lecture about how I had ruined their reputation and I wasn't allowed back home. Thankfully, I have a job, so I'm not financially dependent on anyone. I have booked a room in a hotel for myself. My husband called and asked me about what happened, and I told him everything truthfully. He was quiet and sounded angry, but I didn't pry. He told me that he'll do something about this and hasn't called back since. I haven't called him either, and I'm scared to. I'm not allowed back home. Half of my belongings are still in my husband's house. I can live with my friend till I find a place for myself, but I don't want to be a burden. I don't know what I'm going to do now. I've grown attached to my husband and it'll make me sad if this leads to divorce. And if I'm divorced, then no one will respect me because divorced women get a lot of shit from everyone. My family will also disown me if they haven't already. I'll have to change states if I want to live happily again. I'm at a loss here. How should I approach this situation now? TLDR, my husband and I were forced to marry each other. We decided to open the relationship secretly. We've been open for 2 years now without much problem. I was on a date and my husband's cousin saw me. I made up an excuse, but it didn't work. My in-laws kicked me out of the house. My family isn't allowing me back to my maternal house. Husband said he'll do something about it. I don't want a divorce, but it seems inevitable. I don't know what to do now. Indian here. Seems to me your husband needs to step up and take control of the situation. Maybe this is a good time for the 2 of you to decide how you plan on growing together as a couple, open or not. These type of situations will occur, so you 2 need a proper game plan for the future, which can only happen with very good communication. You should repost this on r/twarks India editors there would suggest you better, as the sub is mainly of Indian women and is pretty helpful. I would get advice from people that understand your cultural background. You're going to get a very Western perspective here on this sub, i.e., everyone telling you to leave the country, which is kinda unrealistic for your current situation emo. It looks like there are 3 possible outcomes. 1. Husband smooths things over with his parents so that you can move back in. Then you'll have to apologize to them and upgrade to a super secret open marriage. 2. Husband takes this opportunity to move out of the family home and have a place to live with you. Don't know how realistic it is in India, but you did say he's well off. 3. You'll have to live alone. If this happens, it's probably best to plan to permanently move to a country that doesn't have that stigma about divorce. In the first 2 options you have to hear from your husband. It looks like you work well together, just without the sex or romance. That's not uncommon in well-functioning arranged marriages. Moving countries really isn't that easy, let alone if op wants to leave. You and husband will need to talk in person. Ask him to come by the hotel, and you guys have a long talk about your options in private. Now, I had a date planned with a guy I met on Tinder. We were going to meet in a mall. It was so stupid to meet in a mall, now that I think about it, but oh well. There may have been a better venue, but you were being smart to meet someone in public. Even if you have something to hide, you still need to make choices that are safe for you. You seem to have an honest and mutually respectful relationship with your husband, and while you maybe made an unfortunate choice meeting your date in public, your husband should still have your back, and I would assume feel a large level of obligation to make sure you're both okay. I can't know what you're going through culturally, but based on what you've shared I would say be brave and call your husband. Tell him you want to stay married and save a relationship if that is what you want. But talk to him and ask him what is going on. I think unless you have proof that your husband has had girlfriends on the side, he can easily say you are cheating on him and you're screwed. You need to speak to him and find out what he is planning. And you need to look and see if you can find a progressive lawyer who will have your interests at heart if divorce does happen. Divorce is a long and messy affair in India and takes years to come through. Plenty of my friends are trying to separate from unhappy marriages with a poor success rate. Your husband should have your back here and tell his parents that what happens between you and him in the bedroom is private, and possibly think of moving out of his parents' home. I'm sorry you have little to no support from your own parents as well. I think your husband could convince your parents that it's fine, somehow, either convincing them that he's your colleague or that he's fine with it, and then you continue as you were. Honestly, I think that's the best outcome. It sounds like he is on your side and is your friend. Have you talked to him, asked him to come to your friend's house, or met in a restaurant? Yeah. The cultural context means most of us can't give you effective advice. As an American, I'm afraid I don't know what advice I can offer. You have my deepest sympathy as this sounds like a extremely difficult and potentially dangerous situation. Wishing you the best of luck in this. None of what is happening is fair. Please give us an update when you're ready. 1. Your friend is doing you a kindness. You are not a burden. 2. What way do you have to communicate with your husband? It seems as there is no going back from this. Since the mill called you names, it will be awkward. Even if you smooth things over, technically you are still married. If you divorce, will you inherit much from your wealthy husband? I think you should ask your husband to move out with you and continue as friends in a marriage, so everyone thinks you're still together, and then you can do what you want. It is never going to be comfortable living in your in-laws' house again. And you really are not in a normal marriage with your husband. Going through the rest of your life having secret hookups is not satisfying. At least by being single and on your own you have another chance for happiness with a real marriage. You are too young to give up. Screw the in-laws and your parents. They have not wanted what's best for you. At least I realize how far we've come in Western countries overall. The only person I've ever known that was forced to marry someone chosen by their parents was from India. She is extremely happy and loves her life. She has been fortunate and would do it all over again. Sorry for your bad luck. Can't give you a good advice. Maybe try to get a job with a foreign corporation in a big city. Usually they come with good income and more educated co-workers. I mean, husband clearly doesn't control his home. Divorce and change state if that's possible. I don't know which part of India you are, but in the south divorce don't hold much stigma nowadays. Open marriage won't survive when you have developed feelings for each other. If your husband to share your feelings, work on the relationship. Else divorce is the better option. Stay safe, bud. If you are no longer financially dependent on your husband or family, why continue the facade of this marriage? You can lead your own life now. Hold your head up. Write a book about this. Move somewhere else, such as the US. Unfortunately, there isn't really a legal way for op to move to the US. People often assume that legally immigrating to the US is something with a well-defined process, but it's really not. The only real ways to legally live in America are through a job-sponsored visa or getting married to a US citizen. Outside of that, there aren't really any options. 2 years was an amazing effort living in the same house. Pure bad luck got you caught. What are the Indian divorce laws like?